Welcome to Hybris Conversations. My name is Suresh Kochatel. Animation has been a favorite play for kids, but over the years, many of us have grown up with Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse, Walt Disney being a legend for himself. Over the years, many Indian companies have tried to create localized content that is for the Indian audiences based on Indian mythological and figures from the history. One such person who tried to make a difference and made it big time is Rajiv Chelaka of Green Gold Animation. Today we have with us Rajiv Chelaka, founder and CEO of Green Gold Animation, a man who rose really from the middle class locality in Sikandrabad to dizzying heights to where he is today. Welcome to the show, Rajiv.
Thank you.
So let me start by taking you through the early days. You like many of us, you are also a typical middle class product. You grew up in the bylanes of Sikandrabad. Your father was in the defense services earlier, then you moved on to the ECIL. How has been the early days of your life?
I think just a small correction. My early days, where I grew up in Narayanguda.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, you grew up in Narayanguda
Yes,
early days.
and later on, I think when I was 14 or 15, we moved to Secunderabad. So I think my childhood was fantastic. It was amazing. I think those were different days when we were playing on the street almost all the time. As long as there is, at least 9 p.m. at least we were almost playing in the summers. So I had a fabulous childhood and definitely not much of TV those days, but I was totally in love with comics. And I read my first ever comic book was Tintin, and a friend of mine read it out to me as when I was like 7 or 8, and I fell in love with that character. And I started seeing visuals of these characters. I started imagining. I used to think, what if I wish I could see these characters move? And that's how my fascination was there. I used to live in an imaginary world, and then came a movie called Superman, and then also at the same time Disney started Mickey and Donald on Saturday afternoons, and then later on Sunday mornings or vice versa. So when I saw those kind of things, and it was really fascinating. I'm generally a guy to not wake up early in the morning, especially on Sunday, but I used to love getting up early in the morning to catch up those cartoons on television. So overall, I think I had a wonderful childhood, and my first ever animated film was, in fact, you mentioned Walt Disney, and it was a Walt Disney film, The Jungle Book. So my father took me to that movie when I was around 5 years old, and I had no idea what was a cartoon before that. And he mentioned to me it's an animated film made with hands and it's hand drawn and stuff, and I couldn't understand. I said I don't want to see pencils move, but he said, you just come to the movie, you'll love it. And once I saw the film, I thought it was real, and I always dreamt of creating such characters that people will go back home thinking about those characters, and thankfully I'm able to do it, and here I am.
So you basically, after that, like again, a typical Indian middle class had this American dream, and you decided to go to the US and do your masters there. And I read somewhere that while doing masters, you were in two minds whether to really continue with the stream which you are doing, or get into the film making part of it. I think you went to the Florida Film Institute and you tried applying there and other places. But somewhere along the way, your family, especially your brothers, stopped you from moving into this particular field. Can you just elaborate on your US journey? How was it?
Yeah. So when I reached US to do my masters in computer science in 1995, the fall of 95, which is about August 95. And as soon as I reached, I fell in love with the US, the way things are, it was a different world. The US was a different country back then, considering what's going on now. I love the country. I went to Kansas City and University of Missouri, Kansas City. I started doing my masters in computer science, and the first semester I really could not focus on what I was supposed to be doing, that is a master's in computer science, and I was interested basically in exploring what's happening, entrepreneurship side of US, there were a million things, the dot-com boom was happening, a million things happening at the same time. I was really excited at different things. I saw some VFX animated films coming out, such as X-Men or Jumanji, and these films were just coming out, and I found it fascinating. At the same time, I was working in the University of Missouri Kansas City Library, and I happened to come across a book of Life of Walt Disney, and I read the book of Life of Walt Disney, and I was totally inspired. I thought to myself that what he could achieve in those days, I think I can achieve a lot more these days. But even then, considerably, I knew that even in my lifetime, able to achieve 10% of what he did, then I would have done something with my life. That's what I felt. He inspired me, and then I immediately decided to quit pursuing my masters, and I wanted to move. So I wanted to go and study filming, and wanted to go to Florida Film School. Applied, I got my admission. Obviously, I had to pay fees. The next step was that I didn't have the money. I called up my brother, who was also at that time in the US. He was working as a software engineer also. And then I called him and said, "Hey, I need. I'm planning to quit my masters." He said, "Okay, good decision." Then he said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to go to Florida Film School." They said, "Okay, good luck." Then I said, "Okay." Then he said, "Why did you call me to tell this?" I said, I think I need to pay the fees." I said, "Okay, good luck. Who's going to pay you the fees?" I said, "You." So I kind of requested him. First, I kind of told him, then I asked him, then I begged him, and then he told me one thing, that we are not ready for this, in the sense, whatever you want to do is, we are okay with that, but first finish your masters, because you already have a scholarship. You don't have to spend too much money. You get your masters, get a foundation for yourself, and then work for a few years and make your money and do whatever you want to do with your career, and we have no objection, and we'll support you that, but you'll have to get a foundation in your education. And I think it was a very sound advice, especially at that time. I was very indecisive. I wasn't sure what I wanted. I was barely 21 years old, and I was not sure what I was up to. So it took me a little time to that decision. I was angry, upset, and hurt. My brother didn't support me, but I understood what he said and went back to school, finished my masters, worked for a few years, and then whatever little I could save. By then I was clear, it wasn't film schooling that I want to pursue. I wanted to pursue animation. I realized that my strength, with having a little bit of creative strength and technology background, I thought animation would be the right subject for me, and I decided to go and study animation. And then after a few years of working, I went to Academy of Art, San Francisco, to pursue animation. And then right after I finished my semester in Academy of Art, I realized that I want to be doing animation for the rest of my life. So I quit my job in the US. I moved to India and set up Green Gold.
So that's how this journey of yours started, of coming back to India. And I did read somewhere that you were very passionate about coming back to India. You didn't like people who criticized India, the dirty roads, the cows on the road, all this kind of stuff. So you had this passion to come back to India and set up something and do something. But back then, I think India would have been a different ballgame altogether, not like what it is today, in terms of the business, in terms of what an animation future would provide you with. So how did the early beginnings start? Was it a typical, again, a garage startup for you?
Yeah, I'd say back in, so I finished, like I mentioned about finishing my education at Academy of Art San Francisco. So that was somewhere in 2000. And around September 2000, I landed back in India. And at that point, everybody, India was a different country. It was, in 20 years, I cannot believe India has changed so much, which is great, but that's what I anticipated. I realized that in US, there is a lot going on. There is a lot of competition. But I realized that in India, it's still a virgin market. And especially for animation, there was nothing done way back in 2000. I felt, what if we recreate our mythology, our stories, and tell it to Indian children? Or what if our kids grow up to say that we have an Indian superhero, and their confidence level will be different. Even till today, a lot of us have been looking up to West to get inspiration.
You have
from
the Doraemons
superheroes.
and the Batmans and
Yeah.
all these characters who were there, who were
And-
actually.
yeah, the superheroes to animated characters, and I felt, why can't we create, and we tell the best stories, we have the best technician, we have the best artist, and I said, why not? And that's what I thought to myself. So when I came back, and everybody looked at me like, what have you done wrong in the US that you had to come back to India? But one of my motivations was also my family. I loved being with my parents. I loved my mother dearly, and I wanted to spend time with her. I really didn't like the lifestyle of US. Although initially I was just enamored by the world of US. Everything about US initially drove me nuts. But later on, I realized that is artificial, and we have to focus. And I realized India has a lot of opportunities. And honestly speaking, I'm a patriot. I love my country, and I really want to do whatever I can. And definitely, with what's happening with China and stuff, definitely we want to give China a run for the money, at least in the field of animation. That's what I can contribute. And so I'm very excited when I came back and started Green Gold, and it was an uphill task the time I started.
So you basically started from your own house. I think your dad had bought an house there in Maratpalli, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
Somewhere there, and Secunderabad, and then you started from there, basically in a small way.
Yeah.
But then as you built up, you moved on later on to bigger things in life. But in your terms of developing characters out of mythology, you identified certain people. You had Vikram Betal, you had other people, and then finally you clicked. What clicked for you big time was Chhota Bheem. So how was that entire conceptualization done? How confident were you that these characters will click with Indian children?
Yeah. So when like you mentioned, we started. We moved to a new house, and we opened our office in Secunderabad in one of the our earlier house, and we started in a small room, like probably about 200 square feet. And we had a ground floor and first floor, but all we needed was one room to get started, and we started with 4 people. And at that time, again, none of these guys knew animation. They only knew Photoshop or some graphics and stuff. So it took us some time to get them trained and stuff. But I realized soon that if we have to do something, if I have to do service jobs, I have to be a larger company. But if I want to do, I can afford to be a smaller company. I started focusing on telling the stories. And Bongo was our first creation, which went on air on Doordarshan. The second was Vikram Betal, which was on Cartoon Network. That was a game changer for our company, because we got to air, and it was my dream to be on Cartoon Network, and it didn't take long to be. It took us only 3-4 years to get there. And when Vikram Betal came, they loved the ratings were good, and the channel said, "Hey, what else can you do for us?" Then I came up with the idea of Chhota Bheem, and I presented them the idea, and they looked at Chhota Bheem and then said, I don't think we're ready for this. You have something else which is more related to Indian mythology. I said, how about the story of Krishna? And then immediately I loved it. We signed a deal, and we started producing 4 movies of Krishna. And once that happened, we really understood now to tell stories better for kids. And from Vikram Betal, it was the top 50 shows of 2005 to 2006 and 7, where we have among the top 5 shows in the country, and number 1, number 2, number 4 were our shows, and the other 3 and 5 were Harry Potter movies. And this was back in 2007, where Harry Potter movies were a rage. And then we suddenly realized that we're a very cheap Indian production compared to a million, or rather millions of dollars of production of Harry Potter, and we have beaten them in ratings. That kind of inspired me. Then Cartoon Network said, what else can you do for us? Then I said, you have to trust me, we have to go with Bheem, and then say, we believe in you. And then we signed the deal, and the rest is history. And 2008 April 6 basically changed not just my life, but the entire animation industry, in domestic animation industry, because before that, prior to Chhota Bheem, there was no major character, or not even one. There were hardly any shows in animation made, and I'm very proud that we from Hyderabad have been able to do this.
But I think you mentioned the date. The date is very crucial, April 6th. A lot of things happened between March 24th and April 6th in your life, I heard. especially considering the fact that you were planning to move to Begumpet, you had done up the interiors, spent a lot of money on it, and suddenly, overnight, there was a fire, and the entire dream turned into ashes. Not literally, but it turned into ashes. But then I think you picked up and you conducted yourself very well, and you came back. Can you just detail us what happened actually?
Yeah, I think that was, I mean, you've done thorough research, I have to say that. April, so like I mentioned, Beam was, of course, a dream come true, but the path to that was full of, full of hurdles. And the biggest hurdle that came our way was on the night of 26th of March, Saturday at midnight. You know, which we a few months before that we signed a lease to a brand new building, 5-storied, 15,000 square feet. We can, about 250 artists can work there. That was a dream. We're building in the process of building the brand new office, and we just completed and almost finished building everything, and we were set to inaugurate that office on 1st of April. And 4 days before that, and suddenly there was at midnight, there was a short circuit, and on the fire started on the first floor of the building, and it just took off. First, second, third, and fourth were completely burnt. So we had overall 5. The ground was okay, but other than that, everything was completely gutted down. Sadly, the fire station was just across the, it was 100 meters away, but it was Saturday midnight, and so it took them about an hour to come. But if they did not show up, the whole building would have gone down. But I'm so glad they came within an hour, and they kind of doused the fire. I'm glad that no life or anything happened that night. Luckily, the office was not occupied. There were no computers, but whatever else was there, the air conditioning, everything got burned down. The furniture, the whatever we built. And then at that moment, I thought to myself, I got a call at around 2 o'clock in the night or 1:30 from the building owner that, the building is on fire and you must come. And I went and saw everything in front of my eyes. The building is burning, and I did not know what to do and how to react on that. And I thought I was a fighter and I should fight. But somewhere I thought to myself, like, how many hurdles can I fight, by myself? And I kind of, at that point, I was kind of at a melting point in my life. I thought I just don't want to do this anymore. I had that point, and it took me a few days to just get over I still can't get over what happened, but it took me some time. And then suddenly, what was what they say, there's a what a silver line behind the dark cloud or something like that. So I saw that 10 days later, luckily we delivered Beam, and our payments were supposed to come. So whatever we burned down and everything, kind of did not go in vain, because we didn't lose any data or nothing of that sort. So the show went on air 10 days later, and we got the ratings within a week. That's a super hit show, and Turner was ready to sign a new deal. And so they realized my situation, and I told them that, listen, if you don't pay us in advance, I cannot work, because my condition is I'm burned down, I'm finished, I have nothing, I have zero. I'm probably negative, I have to pay people, so I cannot do this. And then they realized that they have to support me, and I'm ever grateful to them for standing by me and supported me at that point of my life and the company's life. And thankfully, that was a turning point, and Beam luckily proved himself at the ratings, and we know what is Beam today.
So it ran on Pogo channel, if I remember right. Turner at Pogo at that time. You also got a new partner who came in and helped you financially, apart from what Turner did for you in terms of giving you advance for the programming that you're doing. From there onwards, you picked up steam, and you really clocked up your growth from there on. Can you talk about how that moment to Begumpet, and from that time onwards, how has your company grown?
Yeah. So my partner is Sameer Jain. So he joined me in about 2003, and that's when we started doing Bongo and Vikram Betal and Krishna, everything together. Later on, we realized that we have to make this company self-sufficient, and we were fighting to do that. Till the time Beam happened, we were pretty much we were always in loans, we always owed people. we were running kind of, we were
Hand
running
to
our
mouth
shops.
existence.
Absolutely. So we were taking time from vendors to pay. Luckily, the vendors were pretty good. So we bought 60 computers. They would say, okay, I would say, give me 6 months. He would say, okay, you have to pay me slightly extra. I said, no problem, but we need more time to pay you. So like that, we bargained with everyone for more time to pay the payments and all. But whatever we said, we always kept our word, and that's the reason the vendors trusted me and the company, that we would always honor whatever our this thing was. So we went pretty much. Let me put it like this: if somebody invested whatever money way back when we started, about in 2004 was officially the company Green Gold Animation became private limited after my partner Samir joined. So once that happened, if you had, like example, I would say you put some money in Green Gold in 2004, today it would be worth 1500 times more 15 years later. I think it's pretty growth.
That's a huge growth actually. I mean,
I think so.
return on
But
investment.
it's still on paper. I'm calculating.
An ROI that.
Yeah. So luckily we're still private limited, but I think the time has come for us that we have to look at it newly. The world has changed, especially with COVID scenario. There are new opportunities.
So that's exactly what I want to bring you on, because one of the most crucial questions, and rather a series of questions I've been asking from the last 2 months to every businessman, every company I meet, every entrepreneur, every startup is, how has COVID changed things for you? Because you are in the entertainment industry. Two things happened. One, people were locked up. They were all watching OTT platform. They were watching television. At the same time, the movies were stopped. There were no new movies being made. So in your case, it's an advantage because you're into animation. You really don't need studios. You don't need shooting and all that. So how has been the last 2 months of your journey in Green Gold Animation?
I would personally say it was one of the best times of my life. Reason is many things. Last 20 years I've been working like crazy, and finally last 2 months I'm supposed to be working at home, but I obviously was slacking and probably worked about 4 hours a day. But those 4 hours, whatever I worked a day, was totally focused. And in this 2-3 months, I was able to have a lot of inward growth. I think all these years we were running behind, projects and deadlines and stuff. But suddenly I realized, here's an opportunity for the world to stop and look at things in a different way. And I think that's kind of a God-given break. And I always look at the positive in a scenario like this. Yes, what is happening is terrible. We want people to be healthy, and this virus should have never come in the first place, but it's here. So what is the next step? I think we have to fight it out, number one. Number two, we realize that the utmost concern is the safety of employees. We said everybody now work from home. A lot of these guys are again from lower middle class houses and stuff. Some of them are well off, but their houses are different. So we decided that we need to send computers home to them because they don't own a computer. It's not like in the IT industry where everybody has a computer. So we had to send, because these are workstations, and we had to send every single workstation home. Almost 70% of our workforce, almost, that means about almost 400 computers we had to send home. And that time we had no drivers, no office boys, because it was in a shutdown mode. And we took some special permission from the government, and my admin guys and our vice president operations, these guys went physically, lifted each computer and delivered to them. Very touched by what they did for the company. And then we were, within 10 days of the lockdown, we were up and running. And we obviously did not produce as much as we would from the office. In the first month, our capacity was about 50% of our production. But the second month, we were 70%. Last month, which is the current month, I think we were pretty much kind of meeting all our targets. So I'm glad that we're doing that. But now, during the same time, I realized now we need to change the way we're looking, and we started looking at new technologies. And I thought, okay, there are new things we should do. I started developing more IPs. We developed one IP for an OTT platform which got approved. Then we got we developed two new film stories, which are hybrid with animation characters and stuff. We're looking at new technology in the VFX space. We're looking to enter VFX also. and that's something that we left out, but we realized that if we have to be competing in the international markets, we have to be there, and someday we want to produce movies like what Marvel does. And I believe its time has come that Indian companies create content which can appeal globally, and Mighty Little Beam is one such example. I'll talk about later in the show on that. And so it's been a great thing. I got a chance to experiment on my look. I grow a beard. Before that, I never ever went out with a mustache also. So I'm glad. And most importantly, I think I had a wonderful time with my kids. I have 3 kids, and I could spend a lot of time with them, play the games that, Ludos to Snakes and Ladders to Carrom board to badminton, name any Indian game, or video games to PlayStation. I've done everything with my kids, so I just can't be thankful to God.
I think that really provided you a break. That most of the people have realized that they can cook well, they can finish their reading, they can watch all the movies they want. But when you look back at your life, and when you look back the time you went to US and you were doing computer science, but at the back of your mind there was always this urge to be more creative, not just be another guy coding somewhere deep down in the alley serving US customers. Did you feel, or do you feel now that after all these years that you've been, that you have realized that dream of yours to do what you want to do in life? Because very few people are lucky to do what they want to do in life, because most of them get stuck in something else which they're not really happy about.
Yeah, I think I'm one of the blessed guys that I'm able to do what I really wanted to do. And it's kind of sometimes when you can make money doing your hobby, it's amazing. And I used to think, this, I used to dream, I'm still a daydream even now, and I have a lot of list that I want to achieve in this lifetime. But yeah, I think I've been really lucky that I've been able to do certain things. But I'm not done. I have a lot on my plate. I want to do many more things. I'm very excited. I think when this lockdown came, I felt that maybe I should retire, because being at home was fantastic. But then I realized within that few months that I am totally recharged and ready to go. And I think you will see some great things coming out of our company that will make India proud. And that's what we want to do.
In fact, that's my next question before I close the show is, uh, the lockdown must have given you a lot of time to introspect, plan, and as you rightly said, relax and think about new things. What are the things in the pipeline, unless it's very confidential that you don't want to talk about it, but if it's not confidential, what are the things that Green Gold Animation has in the pipeline in the, say, the next couple of years?
Yeah, so we have, I used to think my plans all couple of years, but I realized that with something can go on unexpected. I thought, okay, let me just plan for the next decade, and then for the 5 years, and then for 2 years, then 1 year, then a quarter. And this is what I've been doing. And so I've been calling meetings in my office every Wednesday, and I started planning out. So I'm making first thing I made was company plan for 10 years. Then I made content plan of what I should create for 5 years. And then I realized, okay, what are the new things that we will do, and what are the things that traditionally we should do to connect with Indian audiences. Then I realized, okay, maybe we should look at recreating our first animated film, Vikram Betal. So I said, okay, in 2004 we did that. It was a different world then. It was SD, and it was digibeta tapes and stuff like that. Then I thought, what if I do now this in CGI and tell its story better? And I thought it sounds exciting, and we won't tell mythology stories also. And then I thought, okay, let's look at recreating some of the mythologies that we have made or somebody else have made for the domestic market. That was the first thing. Second, I thought, time for us to produce content which is hybrid, that is live action characters and animation characters mixed, like what is happening in Hollywood. We are ready. Everybody, I mean, a lot of these VFX works or animation work happens in India. We have everything. We specialize in storytelling. I thought we can do this. So we're getting ready to produce 4 films, and we're going to put it out there. Every 2 years there would be a high-end film coming from us, which would have actors and animated characters as well. So this was the second period. Third, we want to be recognized worldwide, and for that, the first step in that direction was creating content which is globally appealing. and Mighty Little Beam was a spin-off story from Chota Beam. So Beam is 9-year-old, and in Mighty Little Beam is a toddler. That means about 12, between 12 and 15 months is a baby. It's a non-dialogue show. It's on Netflix. It's India's, in fact, it is when we signed it was Asia's first Netflix original for kids. And when for India, it's the first Indian animated kids original. So there's no other thing right now out there, but we are very proud. And the CEO of Netflix himself said at a meeting in a press conference that Mighty Little Beam has done extremely well, and about 27 million households watch it worldwide.
That's a huge number, isn't it?
27 million
Millions.
is like, it's huge, and worldwide. So more importantly, it's not India or US that is doing well. It is doing well everywhere. Latin America, Brazil, Argentina.
So this film has no language, basically. I mean, it can transcend boundaries and geographies across.
Yes, and more importantly, it was the #1 preschool on Netflix platform in 2019, and it's been #2 show for kids and families. The second only to Boss Baby, so DreamWorks Boss Baby. So I felt proud that an Indian
Competing against DreamWorks and Pixar and all these people.
Absolutely, and I think it's just matter of time that we will change the way things are, and we just need to work together. And I mean, as creative industry, we've creative fraternity like the writers, and everybody needs to trust each other. And I think India has got game.
Rajiv, finally, before we say goodbye to this on the show, what would be your advice? I mean, you've been a successful entrepreneur. You realized your dream early. You took the risk that were associated with that particular field. But there are many startups today who have similar dreams, maybe not in the same animation or whatever it is, but what would be your advice? Because you have seen things burning before your eyes, your dreams getting shattered, picked up and again risen like a phoenix from the ashes. So what would be your advice to today's youngsters who are running startups? What would you tell them on how to succeed in their life, in their ventures?
I think it's not an easy thing to sum it up like that, but I can just say a few things that I've learned. #1, I think first realize your strengths and weaknesses. Not everybody is meant to be an entrepreneur. Somebody are really good in working, in big corporate companies. Like this, if you bring a biggest CEO of a corporate company and put him and make him start a company, he may just fail because he's not used to doing that. So an entrepreneur is made of different material. First things you should know is that, do you think you can survive as an entrepreneur? Basically, that means survive without, making money for the next 3-4 years. If you have that kind of support, yes, you should look at becoming an entrepreneur, continuing whatever you're doing. Second, you need to understand your strengths and weaknesses, your personal, and look at improving them. Also, the company's strengths and weaknesses and how to go about that. Also, not every company has product understanding, not every company can do services. So in the beginning of your startup, I have seen many startups doing a mistake of they always say I can do everything, but it may be good for them to focus on a few things and say that these are my strengths and this is what I can do, but yes, maybe we can do that also. So a few things like this, and of course the most important is perseverance, and every time you fall down you have to be ready to get up and walk, which is basically not an easy thing to come by. It's easy to quit, hard to stay your ground and keep walking the path you have chosen. And most importantly, I think you need to believe in yourself, and then if you do that, I think sky is the limit.
Rajiv, I think that's a whole lot of advice for youngsters today, because many of them see the ventures failing and depressed about it, because 90 to 95% of the startups will fail. That's the law of the jungle there for you. But I think you took us through an entire gamut of a journey from Narayanguda to Maratpalli, Secunderabad to Begumpet and to the US markets. And what makes us all Indians proud is that one, we've not been great at creating brands, but here is one brand that has gone transcended across, and say Chota Beam has made it in life. I mean, every kid, every grown-up, everybody knows what Chota Beam is all about. And I think we should be thankful to you and your team for making this possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me here.
That was Rajiv Chelakar, a man who realized his dreams of creating an Indian brand all by himself and his team. He is now competing against the best in the world. on OTT platforms and otherwise. And many a youngster in India should realize that dreams do happen, dreams do take place. Thank you for watching.